Is the ones?
And
Okay.
see you so by the
Okay. Okay, next.
Thank
No. Un email avec une de doc. Ou alors tu peux faire quoi? Que je laisse mon ordinateur ici avec les bios. C'est tout le. Wow. OK, donc. Je vais commencer. Tu peux faire. Ouais. Chris, Mustafa, Elisa.
OK, donc je trouve que c'est OK, je vais le faire.
Qu'est-ce que tu préfères? Tu préfères que je laisse mon ordinateur?
Tu peux le laisser là-bas.
Je peux le laisser.
Il ne va pas s'étendre, mais.
Pas de mot de passe, non. Okay. Je vais juste enlever les trucs pour pas que.
C'est parfait.
C'est toi qui vas présenter les invités, c'est ça?
Oui, il n'y a pas de problème. Donc, tout a été, finalement. Et je parlais, c'est Loncón sur les réseaux. Une chance.
C'est moi et Anne qui vont faire la petite présentation au début et faites passer le micro, je veux dire. Voilà. Autour de notre animatrice.
Excellent.
Puis là, ça va être à toi de présenter les panélistes.
Je le fasse?
Comme tu veux.
Ben, je peux le faire.
OK. Fait que, on s'est juste accordé avec Anne au moment où ça dit genre alternative, co-organiser l'événement, jusqu'à Anne rentre pour dire quelques mots sur alternative.
Ah, OK, c'est ça. Parfait. On fait le speech que vous avez, puis.
Puis quelques mots sur
Ben
alternative.
oui. À quel moment?
Puis je présenterai tout de suite Mustafa.
Parfait. Mais là, moi, j'ai pas les. Parfait. J'ai pas les titres, non? Bon, c'est correct. C'est correct. C'est pas grave.
Attends, tu veux que je l'écrive rapidement?
Ça, c'est pas nous qui le dit, là.
Non, ça, c'est
Parfait.
les bios.
Oh,
Je
good.
l'écris rapidement les
C'est
titres.
pas grave, je m'en charge, c'est bien, c'est vraiment correct. Oui, pas ça.
Ou
Ouvre l'événement Facebook. Ah, ben, parfait, c'est vrai. C'est pas. Oh, good. Les noms sont là.
A lot of the Brazilian unions, they're down. They're the biggest one, the big commerce. They've been down.
It's nice there.
So now they come to Rio de Janeiro.
I have to say that we have a lot of work now.
Non, juste partir le live. Puis je laisse mon ordinateur.
The work en anglais.
Ils sont là, c'est parfait.
Non, union. Oh my God.
Et dans le fond, Anne,
So,
quand je suis attention, c'est partie du réseau. Puis là, vous voulez que je les ai dans l'attente aujourd'hui ou je les lis toutes?
And I know your experience there. It's going to be very important.
Je t'ai mis le titre puis les trucs.
Tu veux le faire en anglais ou non?
Non.
Parce que les gens ont pris juste la traduction pour l'anglais. Et toi, tu peux pas en français?
There's more by
C'est quoi que tu fais là?
En français.
And it's
Ouais.
very,
Surtout c'est le seul.
how can I say,
Je commence?
that we don't allow the
OK, parfait.
more, how to
Yes.
say, horizontal.
Non, c'est Alessandra.
Are independent.
Yeah, but the people and the relations that we are more horizontal.
Right, it's more top down instead of bottom up.
Yes. Was that I would like to say, but it couldn't.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Non, c'est juste cette année.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to get me to meet Lula, president. Right?
Oh, I think that you should. I think that you should. You know that we have the first black minister of the human rights bill, and it's a friend of Elisa. You would love.
Ce soir?
As we know, it's up.
Ah, on a plus. Vraiment, là. Oui, c'est ça. Mais là, j'ai pas tellement pensé les millions. Parce que si on dit tout le temps HM alternative, mais tu sais, c'est historical materialism, à cause d'eux qu'on a beaucoup de monde. Mais en même temps, effectivement. Oui. Moi, j'aime peut-être un peu, je vais rester là.
Oh my God.
You know him?
Hein? Es-tu président du CA, non? Pour présenter.
I need to keep with contact with this union. Is the union of
You know her? She's the president.
Puis comme ça. Ah, ben dans le fond, ouais.
Maybe we talk. Hanging out with them. I was hanging out with them every night. They are so in love the party. Oh, wow. I'm like, 3, 4 in the morning.
Yes, yes.
Still going stuff. I got to put that.
Let me see if I can show come on. Everything around like that.
Well, make sure you put me in touch. I'm gonna go down there in summer. That's how I do that. Yeah. It's on this headset though. We'll hear it. We're hearing the English on here. Okay. All right. No problem. Nope.
Oh, shut up. Mustafa.
Tout de suite.
C'est sûr et certain.
OK, je te la mets dans la table.
C'est gentil.
Ben, je pousse.
Je la prends déjà.
Bonsoir. Bonsoir tout le monde. Bonjour et bienvenue à cette deuxième grande conférence de l'événement de la Grande Transition 2023. Merci. On peut s'applaudir. Oui. Il y a personne qui... autant que nous. Donc, le titre de cette conférence, Reconfiguration des gauches dans le monde, et nous avons une belle représentation des gauches dans le monde. For those of you who didn't, I'm not going to say it in English. We have translation. The panelists are going to be speaking English, but the chair is going to be speaking in French. So if you need translation, we have that at the entrance. Pour ceux qui n'ont pas pris les écouteurs, nous avons de la traduction simultanée de l'anglais vers le français. Et la plupart des panélistes parlent, en fait, les panélistes ce soir parlent anglais, donc vous pouvez aller chercher des casques d'écoute à l'entrée. Donc, nous sommes heureux et heureuses de vous accueillir ici à Concordia. L'université, donc, et la ville de Montréal, Uchiotake, qui sont situés sur les territoires de la nation Kanyen-Kahaka. Et aujourd'hui, on se rassemble pour une conférence sur les alternatives au capitalisme. Oui. Et bon, dans ce contexte, surtout pour une conférence comme ça, on tient à souligner que l'institution a été façonnée par des siècles de colonisation et de racisme systémique. Et d'ailleurs, l'Université Concordia a seulement récemment présenté ses excuses pour avoir participé à l'arrestation d'étudiants et étudiantes noirs de l'université dans les années 1969. Donc, mieux vaut tard que jamais. Mais tout ça pour vous dire que les lieux qu'on fréquente aujourd'hui sont imprégnés d'injustices systémiques. Et comme on est ici pour questionner l'oppression, l'exploitation, le capitalisme, on tient à reconnaître, le collectif tient à reconnaître qu'il n'existe pas d'anticapitalisme sans antiracisme et sans décolonisation. Merci. Je parle de vendu, mais j'aime ça. La grande transition peut être vendu dans le bon sens. Là. Je voulais dire, on est d'accord, on est d'accord. La grande transition fait partie du réseau Historical Materialism, un réseau international d'universitaires engagés. Cette année, l'événement est organisé en collectif d'activistes et d'académiques avec l'ONG Alternative. Donc, je vais laisser Anna Tendresse, coprésidente du CA d'Alternative, vous dire quelques mots.
Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Merci beaucoup d'être ici. Maïka, je tiens à souligner le formidable travail de gestation parce que gestation des événements, puis elle fait tout en double avec une énergie puis un sourire incroyable. Donc, chapeau, Maïka. Et je dois dire que ça nous fait plaisir que des plus jeunes, que la relève prenne les choses en main. C'est vraiment intéressant de voir que des événements comme celui-là, qui en sont pour la 4e édition, soient maintenant animés par plusieurs jeunes, aussi des personnes un peu plus, avec plus d'expérience, mais que les jeunes prennent le lead, c'est très bien. Alternative est une ONG, donc de coopération solidarité internationale, qui est ici à Montréal, qui va l'an prochain. Les activités de partenariat, de solidarité, d'appui des luttes dans le Sud global, dans un contexte marqué par cette crise globale, mais aussi par le néolibéralisme et l'hégémonie de l'homme. Ça prend du courage, ça prend des énergies, ça prend une détermination et ça prend beaucoup d'imagination. Et c'est ce que Alternative tente de faire. Alors, brièvement, un exemple de ce qu'on a fait durant toutes ces dernières années, c'est la solidarité avec la Palestine. Donc, déjà, la première intifada, on recevait donc une étudiante palestinienne de l'Université Birzeit. Depuis ce temps, on a reçu plusieurs leaders palestiniens, femmes et hommes, qui ont rencontré la communauté palestinienne, la société québécoise dans son ensemble de façon inclusive. Et on a voulu continuer dans cette tradition avec la présence du docteur Mustafa Barghouti, qui est juste ici à ma gauche, qui donc, depuis des années, de formation, qui a créé une union de clinique médicale en santé communautaire, clinique qui se promenait dans les villages, dans les camps de réfugiés et qui offrait des soins de santé à la population palestinienne, un travail extraordinaire. Par la suite, Mustafa est allé donc à la rencontre aux négociations secrètes à Madrid avec des camarades, des leaders palestiniens. Et lorsqu'ils sont arrivés avec Oslo, Mustafa et ses camarades sont sortis parce que c'était clair pour eux que Oslo, c'était une continuité du projet colonial israélien. Il est maintenant donc à la tête d'un mouvement qui s'appelle Initiative nationale palestinienne. J'imagine qu'il saura vous en dire un mot, mais je dirais que la gauche, notamment en Palestine, a j'ai envie de dire, elle est confrontée, comme toutes les gauches, à se repenser, à se réinventer, parce que la conjoncture est différente. Et comme vous le savez aujourd'hui, la conjoncture en Israël, avec un gouvernement d'extrême droite, est très dangereuse, sans compter que sur la scène internationale et dans les médias, la lutte palestinienne ou le peuple palestinien est presque disparu de l'espace public, de l'espace médiatique. Donc, on a un gros travail à faire et Mustafa est certainement l'une des meilleures personnes que je connaisse qui pouvait venir nous donner un portrait clair de ce qui se passe là-bas et nous inviter donc à penser aussi conceptuellement et politiquement les façons de résister. Donc, je vous remercie. Je salue également notre camarade et Alessandra qui va animer la présentation. Merci, bonne soirée.
Rebonsoir, c'est encore moi. Donc, quelques petits rappels logistiques que je suis obligée de faire. D'ailleurs, j'ai aussi oublié de me présenter. Je m'appelle Maïka Sondarji. Je suis la porte-parole de l'événement, pas parce que je suis spéciale, parce que personne ne voulait faire ça. Donc, quelques petits rappels logistiques. Éteignez vos téléphones. Lors de la période de questions, il y aura des microphones qu'on va essayer de mettre dans l'allée. Donc, s'il vous plaît, vous levez puis allez là. Ça va être plus simple pour les gens que de courir vous voir. Et la conférence est enregistrée, mais seulement les panélistes. Donc, mais vos voix vont être entendues. Donc, si vous posez une question, soyez-en conscients. Et sans plus tarder, j'aimerais souhaiter la bienvenue à notre animatrice, que ici, on connaît pour la plupart, Alessandra Devulsky, et nos panélistes Chris Smalls, Mustafa Barghouti et Elisa Loncón, qui nous joint en ligne. Bonne conférence.
Bonjour. Sans plus tarder, j'aimerais présenter rapidement nos conférenciers ce soir et encore vous dire merci beaucoup pour votre présence. Je suis convaincue qu'on va sortir aujourd'hui d'ici avec des nouvelles idées et de nouvelles pratiques inspirant tout inspiré dans ce que vous avez déjà fait. Donc, j'aimerais remercier M. Chris Smalls, qui est un organisateur syndical américain connu pour son rôle dans l'organisation des travailleurs d'Amazon à Staten Island. Il est le président et fondateur de l'Amazon Labor Union depuis 2021. Le 30 mars 2020, Smalls avait organisé une grève afin de protester contre le manque de protocoles de sécurité liés à la COVID-19 dans l'entrepôt Amazon où il travaillait. Après avoir licencié, Smalls a fondé le groupe de travailleurs activistes de Congress of Essential Workers qui a ensuite soutenu la formation de la UAL ainsi que la syndicalisation de l'entrepôt d'Amazon. Son travail lui a valu une nomination pour les magazines Time de l'une des personnes les plus influentes de 2022. Son expérience... I'm gonna let you enjoy this. You deserve a lot. Son travail lui a valu une nomination par les magazines Time. Son expérience permettrait d'enrichir la conférence et d'introduire l'audience aux luttes syndicales. I would love to say, oops. Je voulais alors introduire un peu la biographie de M. Mustafa Barghouti. Mustafa Barghouti est un médecin palestinien, une personnalité politique et un militant pour la démocratie et des droits humains. Barghouti a participé activement à la mise en place des programmes de santé dans l'ensemble des territoires palestiniens occupés, notamment au sein de l'Union des communautés de secours médicaux palestiniens. Sur les plans politiques, il a longuement été une figure de parti du peuple palestinien, anciennement Parti communiste. Il a participé de la conférence de Madrid en 1991. En 2002, il a cofondé l'initiative nationale palestinienne, Moudabara, dont il est actuellement le secrétaire général. Barghouti a été ministre de l'Information dans l'éphémère gouvernement palestinien d'unité nationale de mars à juin 2007. Depuis, il a joué un rôle clé dans la facilitation des négociations politiques internes entourant les accords d'unité entre les Fatah et les Hamas. Depuis 2015, il siège législative palestinien et est membre du Conseil central de l'Organisation de libération de la Palestine. Barghouti a été nommé pour les prix Nobel de la paix en 2010. So deserved. J'aimerais aussi présenter la biographie de Madame Elisa Loncón. Elisa Loncón Antileo a reçu le prix international des droits de l'homme René Cassin. Il a été nommé comme l'une des 100 personnes les plus influentes de 2021 par les magazines Time. Et elle est maître de conférences au département d'éducation de l'Université de Santiago du Chili, où elle concentre ses recherches sur l'enseignement du Mudugam. Elle est également professeure adjointe à la Faculté des Lettres, chercheur au Centre d'études indigènes et interculturelles, CIR, de la Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. Elle est représentante du peuple mapuche, élue via des sièges réservés aux représentants des peuples indigènes. Le 4 juillet 2021, elle a également été élue présidente de l'Assemblée constituante chilienne, poste qu'elle occupera jusqu'au 5 janvier 2022. Son travail se concentre autour de la reconnaissance d'un État plurinational au Chili, à garantir les droits fondamentaux tels que l'autonomie et l'autodétermination, ainsi que les droits à la terre, au territoire et au bien commun. Donc, merci beaucoup, Madame Loncón, qui est avec nous via Zoom. Donc, malheureusement, il y a eu un imprévu avec une situation dans laquelle elle n'a pas pu venir. Donc, elle va se rejoindre à la discussion aujourd'hui, comme vous pouvez la voir. Merci beaucoup d'être venue, même si c'est à distance. Merci. Donc, j'aimerais inviter M. Barghouti, justement pour nous faire un peu une introduction des enjeux qu'il aimerait souligner à l'égard de ces dernières luttes. Je pense que c'est une bonne façon de commencer notre conversation. Donc, on aura une introduction de M. Barghouti et après de M. Ismaus.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm sorry I can't speak in French, so I'll have to do it in English. And I would like to start by raising a question, of course, which is in relationship to the themes of this conference, which is why Palestine and the issue of Palestine is important for the international solidarity and for international left. And not only for international left, but for the worldwide struggle against oppression and exploitation. I think there are two major reasons for that. And the first one is that the fierce capitalism of today manifests itself in modern times in four ways, I think. First of all, it manifests itself in what I would call neocolonialism. And I would say also, if I can use the term, transnational colonialism, which is prevailing worldwide without being noticed. Second, because I think fierce capitalism is also manifesting itself in the form of severe racism, as well as right-wing nationalist populism, which is also appearing in so many places in the world. And finally, in the form of xenophobic racism and fascism. There is no place in the world where these four manifestations are so clearly present as is the situation of the Israeli oppression of the Palestinian people. And that's why I think that you cannot really say that you are on the left without really recognizing this reality of this form of oppression. The second reason why the Palestinian issue is important today is because I think traditionally left was always active in the area of international solidarity worldwide. An indicator of the activity of the left was, for instance, in the struggle of liberating Algeria from French colonialism, in supporting the struggle of the people of India to liberate themselves from British colonialism, in the support of the struggle of the people in Vietnam, as well as support to the people struggle against apartheid in South Africa. These are just examples of how international solidarity functioned. I think that today, the most important indicator of whether you are really engaging in true left international solidarity is whether you are really supporting Palestine or not. And it's not a coincidence that I keep repeating that what Nelson Mandela said when South Africa was liberated from apartheid. He said, our freedom will be incomplete in South Africa till Palestinians are free. He also said that the most important human cause of today is the Palestinian issue. Regardless of that, and frankly speaking, we see that solidarity with Palestinians is lagging behind. As if Israel is above accountability. As if Israel and its establishment is above international law. And there is a very serious, severe abuse of the suffering of the Jewish people during the Holocaust and during anti-Semitism in Europe, and maybe the pogroms of Russia, which we are all against, of course. This history is being abused to justify oppression of the Palestinian people. And the second risk is that not only that international solidarity is lagging behind, but also there is the clear risk that we could see a similar situation of what happened to South Africa when governments were so late in condemning apartheid and in boycotting apartheid. A very clear example here also is the double standard that we see in the world today. And nothing is clearer than comparing the situation in Ukraine with that in Palestine. In less than 2 months, no less than 11,000 punitive acts and sanctions were imposed on Russia. In 75 years of oppressing the Palestinian people and the longest military occupation of modern times, not a single sanction was imposed on Israel. We are struggling not only against occupation. We are struggling against the effects of the worst form of ethnic cleansing that happened in the 20th century. When 75 years ago, and we've just commemorated the 75th anniversary of what we call the Nakba for Palestinians, or the catastrophe, when Israeli gangs eliminated and wiped out completely 520 Palestinian communities and villages. When 52 major massacres were conducted, including the famous Deir Yassin massacre. And when 70% of the Palestinian population were forced out of their country, becoming one of the largest refugee populations in the world today. To add insult to injury, in 1967, Israel also occupied the West Bank and Gaza Strip, creating what I call the longest occupation in modern history. And then this occupation has transformed gradually into a system of apartheid. As my very good friend Ronnie Casserels from South Africa used to say, and he's a Jewish South African who struggled with Nelson Mandela against apartheid and became a minister in his first government. He used to say, what you have in Palestine is a much worse apartheid than what we had in South Africa. Amnesty International Human Rights Watch, ISQA Group, as well as the most respected Israeli human rights organization called B'Tselem, they all came up with thorough reports showing and confirming the terrible system of apartheid that Palestinians are subjected to today. I'll just quote one line here from Amnesty International report, which says that Israel enforces on Palestinians an institutionalized regime of oppression and domination of one racial group over another through laws, policies, practices, including massive seizure of land and property, unlawful killings of Palestinians, forcible transfer, drastic movement restrictions where, for instance, we in the West Bank are subjected to no less than 645 military checkpoints, and we waste every year 60 million hours waiting at checkpoints. In addition to denial of nationality and citizenship to Palestinians, and denial of self-determination for Palestinians. What we see here is not only a system of apartheid, but a blunt system of racism. Two examples. One is the national state law, which they passed in the Israeli parliament with the support not only of the governing party in Israel, but also with the support of Zionist opposition parties as well, which says that the land of historic Palestine, which they call Eretz Israel, it's in this land, the right for self-determination is exclusive for Jewish people. That's where and when Palestinians today on the land of historic Palestine are equal, if not a little bit more, than the Jewish Israeli population. They've just passed a law that forbid us from carrying Palestinian flags. If we carry a Palestinian flag, we can be put in jail for 1 year. And in addition to that, they've just had a march with Israeli flags in Jerusalem. Even the State Department in the United States had to condemn what these extremists were shouting, saying, death to Arabs, death to Palestinians. And we are not talking about 10 or 100 people. We're talking about 50,000 people who were also carrying the slogans and flags of a kahana movement, which was classified in Israel itself and even in the United States as a terrorist group. I would not take much of your time, but I want also to alert you to the fact that today who are in the government in Israel are self-declared fascists. Smotrich, who is the finance minister in Israel, said bluntly that he is a fascist homophobe. He also said that we will fill the occupied West Bank with settlements and settlers so that Palestinians would lose hope to have a state of their own, and they will have one of three options: either to immigrate or to accept a life of subjugation to Israeli rule or die. These are the words of the second most important minister today in Israel, and none of which was ever condemned by Netanyahu, the prime minister. What we have today, what we are subjected to, is an alliance between extreme nationalist racists like Netanyahu and extreme Jewish religious fundamentalists, fascists like Ben Gvir and Smotrich. And that's why we need international solidarity. We need international solidarity, and we need you to join and support the boycott, divestment, sanctions against Israeli apartheid system, not only because that support and solidarity would help us overcome this terrible situation, but also because Israel is supported internationally by huge powers, including your neighbors in the United States, including several Western governments, and including a very powerful Israeli lobby. We face a situation where Israeli side is trying to dehumanize us, to dehumanize Palestinian struggle. They're trying to create a situation where the oppressor, the criminal, becomes the victim, and the victim becomes oppressed by that criminal. That's why I ask the question, and I will finish in 3 minutes. I ask the question here in Canada, why your parliament in Quebec refused to use the word Nakba, while the United Nations, for the first time in 75 years, decided to devote a whole session in the General Assembly to the Nakba. Why Canada, which is a country that promotes peace and human rights, keeps voting in the United Nations against Palestinian rights and keeps supporting Israel unconditionally? Why some left groups, or those who claim they are left groups, continue to abstain from supporting Palestinian struggle? Why some left groups accept to be subjected to intellectual terrorism by the Israeli lobby, to frighten them from criticizing Israel? And why and by which law in the world criticizing Israel becomes anti-Semitism? Given that even some Israeli leaders said, if you exclude Israel and say that it cannot be criticized, this is exactly, and in particular, anti-Semitism, because you exclude Jewish people from being normal like every other people. To consider that Israel is excluded from being subjected to international law is anti-Semitism. What I'm saying here, in summary, is that we want your support and your solidarity, not only because it is our right as Palestinians who struggle, but also because taking the right stand in this regard will be supporting the principles of human rights, the principles of justice, and actually it would be supporting the principle of civilization of humankind. Because otherwise, if people are subjected to such a terrible amount of oppression, ethnic cleansing, occupation, apartheid, and racism, and nothing is done, then many people will think we are really living in a jungle, not a world that is governed by basic principles of human rights. In other words, post-capitalism alternative requires the end of colonialism and the end of racism and the end of apartheid in Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inspiring us with your words. I would like to continue with pourquoi je parle en anglais, j'ai aucune idée. Donc, j'aimerais inviter M. Ismos maintenant. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, is it working right now? I think so. So thank you so much for your words now, very inspiring for all of us. And I would like to j'aimerais inviter M. Ismos pour nous faire son introduction. Merci beaucoup.
I don't know how I'm gonna top that, but I'm gonna try. Oh man. Well, first off, we're not free until we all free. So free Palestine. You know? So yeah, I'm learning a lot. So I'm soaking it all in. This is my third trip to Canada, second to Montreal. So thank you for inviting me back. And I love coming up here because every time I come up here, it's another learning experience, learning the different struggles. And as my comrade said, you know, international solidarity is how we fight all of these different battles that we have, no matter if it's labor, no matter if it's social injustice, no matter if it's environmental, no matter if it's women's rights, racism. Capitalism is the catalyst for all of this and our oppression. So once again, you know, we're not free until we're all free. And labor is the base of our democracy, the working class people. You know, we have to fight for ourselves. We have to fight for our rights. We have to fight for our civilization. So, you know, labor has to take a stance, and I'm happy to take a stance with Palestine anytime. So solidarity and international solidarity is how we're going to win, and bringing people together is how we also is going to win. So we're here, and when you look around the room, you look at not just you know, don't see just people, see allies, see people that are going to be on the front lines with you, see your comrades, see yourselves, see your loved ones, because it's all of us in this room that's going to make the change for our future and our younger generation. Nothing's going to be given to us. You know, we know the establishment that's been in power for decades has never given us what we wanted. We always had to fight for it. So I would love to begin my introduction off with looking to your left and looking to your right and saying, I got your back. I got your back. I got your back. I got your back. And understand that the power will always remain with the people. So for those who don't know, a little bit about myself. I started with Amazon. First of all, my name is Chris Smalls, former Amazon employee. I started with Amazon back in 2015. I got hired entry level in New Jersey, opened up 3 buildings for the company. New Jersey was my first one. Connecticut was my second, and JFK, Staten Island, New York was my last facility. I was an assistant manager there for 4.5 years. I trained thousands of Amazon employees. I trained hundreds of their upper management over the course of my tenure there. And the reason why I no longer work there is because, like Alessandra mentioned in my bio, in 2020, I led a walkout at JFK over COVID-19. During that time, New York City was the epicenter of the world. People were dying every 15 minutes. That particular building where I worked at employs over 8,300 people from all over New York City and also surrounding states. So as a supervisor that spends 40, 50, 60 hours a week with these workers, I consider them my extended family. I see them more than I see my own, children. And for me, I couldn't just be complacent and do nothing when COVID was, running rampant through our country. So initially, I tried to go through the proper channels. I went to HR, trying to speak up on behalf of the workers, saying, hey, there's something going on here. Because every day I would come into work, and this was, March of 2020 when the pandemic first hit. And every day I would come in, I'll see, different symptoms from different employees, fatigueness, tiredness, vomiting, not being able to work at work their full shifts. Just a lot of eeriness, people not showing up to work. And I was told in a meeting that we have every day with our upper management as a part of what to relay back to the workers underneath me. And in the meeting in March, they told me not to tell anybody that people were coming to work positive. And this was before testing was available, before the vaccine. And we were deemed essential workers. You know, we were deemed the closest thing to the Red Cross. And I know my job description did not say, well, it did say to have a GED or a high school diploma and lift 50 pounds. It didn't say to work in the middle of a deadly pandemic. So when the upper management told me not to tell workers underneath me that I'm supervising that they already had positive cases, that was my last day working for Amazon. Yeah. From that moment forward, I clocked out. I joined forces with one of my colleagues, and we sat in the cafeteria the rest of the entire week, telling the workers the truth, telling the workers that people are positive, and we need to shut the building down. We want to be safe. We want to be paid at home, safe with our families until we can come back to work safely. And Amazon refused to listen to us. You know, the thousands, the 8,300 of us every day, we were marching into the general manager's office, voicing our concerns until the last day of that week, where they only decided to quarantine just me. Right. That's funny, right? I thought the same thing. I thought it was funny. So yeah, out of the 8,300 plus, they decided to quarantine just me. And my response to that was, you know, well, what about everybody else? And, you know, they continue to insist that it's just me. I'm the only one that's already infected when I wasn't. So I broke that quarantine and I planned to walk out over the weekend of my quarantine, my first 2 days. And I didn't know how big of an impact it was until I started driving up to the building on that Monday, March 30th. And I saw a helicopter flying over. I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? But we know we had to speak our truth to the power. And I took that sacrificial jump or risk because I knew if I didn't do it, nobody else is going to do it. You know, as a supervisor, I think still to this day, I'm probably the only one that's really out here publicly as a supervisor or assistant manager that speak out against the company because of the fear that they instill into the workers of their corporation and the culture that they have created for 28, 29 years. So yes, that walkout led to my termination. 2 hours after that protest, I was fired over the phone. They broke a law. Yeah, it was illegal. A week after that, Jeff Bezos himself, one of the richest men in the world at that time, he was the richest man in the world. He was averaging $13 billion a day, $9 million an hour, almost $5,000 a second. $5,000 a second. And he spent a few hours of the 9 million he made to talk about little old me. Somebody who made less than 50,000 and at the bottom of the total poll and his company. And in that meeting, he signed off, Jeff Bezos at the time, richest man in the world, still the CEO of the company, signed off on a smear campaign calling me not smart or articulate, ironically, to make me the face of the whole unionizing efforts against Amazon. Instead of answering health and safety questions for the umpteenth time to the media. That was literally per word what they signed off on, Jeff Bezos. And somebody in that room didn't agree with that and they leaked that out to the New York Times. So not only that, his general counsel made a mistake and emailed that to 1,000 workers. So they shot themselves in the ass for that one. But that obviously is a stigma in the Black community, you know, to discredit our vernacular, discredit how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to talk, calling me not smart or articulate, You know, it's basically saying that I'm not smart enough to even talk about, you know, health and safety for Amazon workers and beyond. I'm not capable of being up here speaking about these things. You know, that was their smear campaign. We're talking about the $1 trillion company of Amazon. And that, of course, infuriated me. But it also, I had a decision to make. You know, I wasn't an organizer. You know, I wasn't trying to form a union. I was just a regular person, you know, single parent, trying to do the right thing, go to work, pay my bills, live my life. 3 years ago, just 3 years ago, I wasn't any of this. I wasn't, if you would have told me right now, I'd be standing here as the president of the first union in American history for Amazon workers, I'd be looking at you like you had 10 heads. And that's real. And I want you guys to understand that, because what I've done in the last 3 years means that anybody could do it. You know, just think about it. You know, I was on my way to a concert the weekend before COVID hit. You know, that was my life. I like to hang out, I like to have fun. I like to have family and friends events. I love to do that. I'm a real people's person. I used to be a rapper 10 years ago. And all of these things is a part of my personality. The way you see me now is the way I went to Amazon working there. I always thought that my identity, my representation was important. The same way I went to the White House last year when I met Joe Biden. I told them, they're going to invite me to the White House, I'm coming as is, or don't invite me at all. And when I went, yeah, they didn't do a good background check, but that's a whole nother conversation. But going back into, you know, how we got here with the Amazon labor union. Yeah, after that leaked memo came out, I started my nonprofit organization. It's called TCOEW, the Congress of Essential Workers. And from that moment, me and my comrades, we traveled to every Jeff Bezos penthouse and mansion in America that we can find on Google, at least. And we started in New York City at his now $140 million penthouse. It was 80 million at the time in 2020. He keeps buying floors. I don't know how many damn bathrooms you need, but he keeps buying floors. So now it's 140 in New York City. Then we went down to DC to his home that is actually a museum. I think that one has about 26 bathrooms. I don't know how many shits a day you need for 26 bathrooms, but he has 26 bathrooms in DC. And then we went out to his $165 million mansion in Beverly Hills. Once again, I don't know how many bathrooms is in there, but it used to be the largest purchase in California history, but I think Jay-Z and Beyonce just beat them today. I saw that in the news, $200 million. So yeah, we know these billionaires got money, basically, right? And after traveling and advocating for workers' rights with my nonprofit for over a year, while that was going on simultaneously down in Bessemer, Alabama, they were trying to fight for the first union in American history. And it picked up so much media attention that it was hard to miss. You know, you had to be under a rock if you wasn't hearing about it. Politicians, big name politicians, celebrities, everybody and their mother was flying down there from labor. And us on the outside, we were trying to figure out, you know, what are they trying to do with a union, especially an established union, since, you know, we wasn't at that point at the moment. So we paid attention. And better yet, I said, you know, let me really go see what's up. And I actually drove from New York City 16 hours down to Bessemer, Alabama during their first campaign. And I wanted to learn what was going on the ground. Was it adding up to the media attention? And was the workers really resonating with that? And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. You know, they got a lot of attention, a lot of political support. But I know as an Amazon worker, none of that matters. You know, we don't come home after working 50, 60 hours a week and turn on Democracy Now! I can tell you that right now. We don't come home and turn on CNN or turn on MSNBC or any local news because we're tired, we're exhausted. So the disconnect that I felt in that first campaign was very real. The workers were still in fear. That building in particular is 85% Black and brown workers, 80% Black women work at that building, and it's almost 6,000 employees there in Bessemer. And Amazon spent millions of dollars to stop this campaign, in which they were successful. So when that came out, that infuriated us even more, being a Black person, leading a Black organization, comparing our building to that building in Bessemer. Staten Island has the same demographics, majority Black and brown, majority women of color, majority immigrants. And we decided that we're now going to form our own worker-led independent union. And we decided to go independent because we felt as Amazon workers, whether we former or current, we know the ins and outs of the company best. We know these grievances because we live them, and we know our coworkers more than anything. So we decided to come back to Staten Island April of 2021, and we began our campaign. I got 3 minutes, I got this. And we began our campaign that lasted over 11 months. I spent over 300 days at the bus stop across the street from the building I was fired, talking to workers day, night, hot, cold, winter, summer. I was out there barbecuing. I was out there talking to people, out there having several face-to-face conversations, using Amazon's principles against them, actually. One of them is, have a backbone, disagree, and commit. That was my favorite one. And, I had a backbone ever since I worked there. I disagreed with their practices, and I was committed to the organizing. And one of Jeff Bezos' favorite principles is every day is day one. And it is day one. It's day one for our union. It's day one for our contract fight. It's day one for our organizing efforts. It's also day one for this revolution. So it's very good principles. So I'm down to 2 minutes. Just knowing that what we proven with our campaign, $1 trillion company, and they still can't figure out how we won. Let me tell you how we won. It was easy, it's simple. No amount of money in the world can amount to the power of people when we come together, right? I'm gonna say that again. No amount of money in the world can amount to the power of people when we come together, right? What they calculate with Amazon is numbers, metrics, robots, machinery, all that bullshit, but they can't calculate love and solidarity because that is free, right? So understanding that when we come together, there's nothing that can stop us. There's nothing that's going to stop our liberation, only ourselves. We can't be divided. We got to stay united. We got to stay resilient, militant, understanding that this is a long, committed fight. It's not going to be an overnighter. We can blame that on Amazon 2-day shipping. I know things want to be fast, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. And we have to understand that it's a point of no return. If we don't fight now, we're not going to have a future to fight for. So this is International Solidarity 101. I've been here 3 times to Canada in the last month. I will be back. I will continue to amplify our message. I'll continue to build unionizing across the world, because this is a worldwide corporation. It's going to take worldwide effort. So once again, we're not free until we all free. Thank you for having me. And please, join up, because this is our fight. And when we fight back, we what? When we fight back, when we fight back, when we fight back, every damn time, power to the people.
Thank you so much for the energy that you just gave to us right now to think about how many things we can do just with this. enlightenment of yours. So thank you so much. J'aimerais, and I would love to just say that we have Miss Loncón that is online with us, and I would love to hear her some words of her to us to talk about direct from Chile.
Hello. Bonjour, mon ami. Good evening. Mari, tamien melelu tfaichi trawen meu, peu mangele kom kume feleiman. I am using my mother tongue in order to say hello to you from the deep of my heart and also from deep of Chile. Me, I belong to the Mapuche nation here, and we really understand what is going on with the oppression in Palestine, what is going on with the oppression of workers, because we are an oppressive nation. We are oppressed by the state, and also we are oppressed from the political hierarchy parties. So I want to talk about this in my what is happening here, and my vision as human, as Mapuche woman, about the what is going on in our struggle and what happened and what we see in the left project, political project. One point for us is very important, that the colonization, because colonization explains what happened with indigenous people. Colonization explains also what happened with women's rights, and also with the destruction, the climate crisis that we have today. And my language is a minoritarian language, and the Mapuche people, we are losing our language because there is no possibility inside the state to keep our language. Just is an effort from our community, but the state, by the school, every day is broken the mentality, the indigenous mentality inside the school. And it is not casual situation. It's a colonial history that we have here for 5 centuries in our Latin America, when the Spaniard came to our continent. So I invite you to analyze the situation of the progress, the modernity as European way of thinking, as European philosophy. Unfortunately, the right wing and also left wing grew from the same philosophy, from the European philosophy. 500 years ago, and instead they promised in everywhere along the world, they promised the development, the modernity, human rights. But instead of get that practice, they destroy the people, Aboriginal nation. They use the genocide in order to implant that philosophy in our continent. And that philosophy, it's genocide philosophy, is a oppressive philosophy, because in order to have progress, you need to sacrifice people. You need to sacrifice women. You need to sacrifice workers. This is why we don't have progress inside of our society today. We as indigenous, we are clear about that. Palestinian speakers talk about the neocolonialism and racism, and we have colonialism and racism in everywhere. We have it in our continent, inside of indigenous community, inside of our state. They are stealing the land, all the richness of our Mother Earth, in order to get money for one group of person. And as the Palestinian person speak about the dehumanize the people, we know what does it mean. Does it mean to have people without rights for territory, without right for autonomy and self-determination, without right for language, without also that included the right of our nation, because they are destroying our nation. To have progress, they need to do that. They need to do that because they need people that support the system, support the neoliberal state or economical model that we have here in Chile, and put people inside the zone of non-being. And we, the indigenous, we are inside the non-being zone, and there is other zone of being. In that place, people can have social rights, or maybe they can be citizens, but they are not the owner of all of the richness that we have, that our country produces. So I think that there is a mistake, a historical mistake, to accept the project of progress, because as there are some humanistic, scientific, they said that this is a myth. It's a myth. It's something not true. But with that myth, they conquest all of our country. The European belong to the European philosophy, and with that myth, conquest all our country, and our state accepted, and all the policy inside of our state is working in order to get that progress. But that progress never come to our communities, never come to our society, just for a few people that control the economy and the policy. So maybe if the left want to improve the right of the human rights, we need to include other ontology, other philosophy. We need to speak about a new epistemology from indigenous people. We need to include other way of thinking, like women way of thinking too. So if we didn't do that, we will keep the oppression inside of our society. I want to tell you what happened with the constitutional process here in Chile. As you know, we had a first constitutional process that started in 2021. And we in democratic way, we were elected, all of the people vote in order to have constituents in order to write the new constitution. And it was a very democratic process. And we include the right of plurinationality for indigenous people. We include social rights, women's rights, nature rights, every day that we need from social movement, from different young movement, diversity movement, and we have a plural constitution, and we present it to the society, but we lost it in the referendum. Last year, it was in September 4, we lost the referendum, and we lost the possibility to have a new constitution, a very plural constitution. But why the people rejected it is a very big point, and there are different reasons why the people rejected the proposal. But one big reason was the hate discourse against the indigenous people, against women. Also, lie discourse, fake news, and unfortunately, the media are connected here with the people from the power. So they use the media, social net, in order to make that discourse and put that discourse inside the Chilean society. And Chilean society fear about change, so they rejected. And today we have a second process, constitutional process. But this second constitutional process is very different from the first constitutional process, because the parliament political parties negotiate inside the parliament in order to have designated team, expert team, to write the constitution, and those designated people belong to the political party, and there is no people from social movement, and also they excluded the indigenous Aboriginal nation. We are 10 Aboriginal nation here, and we were excluded to be part of the expert team inside the second constitutional process. So that happened because the colonial history that we still have in our continent, that happened because the colonial history is inside the political party, including party from the left. They don't care about the diversity. They don't care about that point of connected with racism, with the autonomy of the nation, Aboriginal nation. So that is very difficult to avoid it. So today we in that new process, there is no a lot of possibility to include the right of Aboriginal people, the right of women, and also social rights. We hoped to find change but people that have the voice today are people from the right wing. So in the third point, I want to say that we have also an horizon. Because we wrote that horizon inside that first draft of constitution for Chilean society. And as indigenous people, we are fighting for our collective rights, because we need our individual rights, but also collective rights, and also the right for nature, also the right for women. The plurinationality that we speak about here in Chile, it's a very different from the plurinationality that wrote inside the constitution Bolivian people or people from Ecuador. The difference between is because we included equal right between women and men, the paridad we call it in Spanish here. So and also the autonomy for our community, we also speak about the autonomy of the region, because we have a very centralistic nation here. Chile is a nation state, centralistic nation state. So the possibility of the region to plan to have our own plan of life is very difficult, because most of the program born from the central area, or especially from Santiago. So, but we needed the horizon, and in that horizon, we are speaking about to defend our struggle also is to defend the plurinationality, the self-determination of Aboriginal nation, also the right for nature, the right for women, and social rights. That is the horizon for the social movement here in Chile, and our demand is also for the political parties, from progressive political party and party from the left wing, or political or progressive, all progressive party, because we need to change the mentality, Eurocentric mentality. We need to change the idea of progress that sacrificed our people inside with genocide and without rights, or dehumanize our people. And we also ask them to include the right, defend the nature, because we need our mountain, we need our lake or river free, and because on the contrary, the life will be very difficult for our people and for all of our society. So maybe if the left include that new demand, the plurality demand, to modify the law, constitutional law for all, to be in the democratic way, and also include all of the people, women. I think that will help to all of us. The demand, the indigenous demand, is not only the state demand to change the state, because we are struggling in order to defend our territory, in order to defend our language, our own way of life, and recovering our own philosophy. So maybe we need to pluralize the political project of our struggle, and included our decolonizing way of thinking, and accept that there are different society, and one of that different society are the indigenous people. That is my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Loncón, for not only explain to us the complexity of the struggle from Chile, but to make a very important point about the limits of our collaboration with the state. So thank you so much. I would love, j'aimerais bien poser une question, bien évidemment, au conférencier et à notre conférencière. Oui, je suis vraiment désolée. Je pense que parfois il fonctionne, parfois il ne fonctionne pas. Donc, j'aimerais poser des questions, mais j'imagine aussi que nous avons des questions de public aux conférenciers. Donc, est-ce que nous avons des interventions, des questions à être posées? Parce que sinon, j'ai des questions quand même. Je vois une question ici avec la main levée, une autre. Parfait. Merci.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Roger, je vis à Montréal. Une question à Chris Mars et puis aussi une réflexion. Premièrement, je suis au courant que les travailleurs d'Amazon de Montréal tentent de se syndiquer avec la CSN. Et aussi, mon autre question, en tant que consommateur, nous, est-ce qu'on a un levier avec Amazon? Est-ce qu'on devrait dire on boycotte Amazon? Est-ce que les éditions Remue-Ménage devraient vendre leurs livres sur Amazon ou devraient boycotter sur Amazon? Comment est-ce qu'on peut soutenir la lutte des ouvriers d'Amazon tout en préservant le modèle d'affaires ou non d'Amazon? Donc, je sais que c'est une question très facile que vous allez répondre en 2 secondes, là, mais ce sont mes réflexions.
Merci. Est-ce qu'on fait le tour aussi de la deuxième question et après, oui, c'est le cas.
My name is Khalid Youssef. My question for Dr. Mustafa Barghouti. It's a little bit complicated. You are asking about why Canadian doesn't support enough the Palestinian cause. On the other hand, I want to tell you, I live in Montreal for around 5 years. And with my communication with the kind people here, they know nothing about the Palestinian cause, the history, the complication. And most of them, which I deal with them in the community, very strange for me when I talk to them, they think this is like a local problem. So what the Palestinians do to make this information about the Palestinian cause, history, and complication clear for the normal Canadian people, I'm not talking about the political community. Thank you.
Je vais laisser, je ne sais pas, M. Ismos, peut-être vous aimeriez commencer, M. Barghouti. Oui.
Yeah, sure. So as far as what customers could do, I know I understand, just by show of hands, how many people in here shop on Amazon? I know. Yeah, I know. It's a lot of y'all don't want. It's probably more than that. They don't want to raise their hands. But, so show of hands again. Keep your hands up, right? This is serious. Show of hands who uses Amazon. I know it's all of y'all. Y'all don't want to say it. Good. Don't cross the picket line. So was you using Amazon 10 years ago? Hands down if you wasn't. 10 years ago. Yeah, was you 10 years ago? 2000 what? Was it 2013? Was you using Amazon? I'm talking about ordering stuff. Ordering stuff over Amazon 10 years. No, you wasn't. So, and if you was, it wasn't nothing much. It wasn't really that, it wasn't that much but books and whatever. So understand this. Now this company can look at your medical records. Now this company owns 75 other companies. They're countries too, probably. And now this company that started off as a bookstore just 28 years ago, still fairly new as a company. And we give all our money to this one man that flies to space on the penis rocket, that owns a $500 million yacht now, and that made $5,000 a second during the pandemic while people were dying. So that's where your money's going towards. Now, I understand it's a drug that you got to wean yourself off of because for some reason, everybody got hooked to same-day shipping and hitting one-click buy online. But you don't see what happens behind the scenes. You don't see the 8 to 10 people that is affected, that get injured, that get killed, that get hurt. Y'all don't see that process. So what consumers can do is not only can they stop shopping there, shop elsewhere, like your local mom and pop stores, your local grocery stores, bookstores, because guess what? If you don't, you're putting them out of business. Like you're contributing to why your main streets don't look the same as they did 10 years ago. You know, so understand, if you want to support us, educate yourselves, your loved ones, your neighbors, your friends, your family. Let them know that if we don't stop shopping at Amazon, 1 out of every 4 people in the world are going to work with this company in the next few years. 1 out of every 4. That means you're going to know somebody, if not yourself, is going to work for Amazon or one of its subsidiaries. Why? So this is what we have to do. We have to fight for our protections, fight for our rights, stand in solidarity with the workers that are organizing. Stop shopping there. I can't call a boycott. You did. So I'll follow your lead. And understand that where our money goes matter. We have to follow the money. That's the root of all evil, right? The money. When you follow the money, where you put your money into, what companies you're buying and purchasing from, and what is going on with these workers at these companies. I worked at Amazon, and I've never bought anything from there. You know what I bought? The first time I bought something off of Amazon was when they fired me in 2020. I bought a bullhorn. And that's real. You don't need it.
Thank you. Simple.
About the question of how much people know. Well, of course, if people want to know, they can know. I mean, it's not that complicated. But I do agree that there's a serious problem here because the major media outlets don't cover what happens in Palestine. And if they do, unfortunately, they don't cover it properly. I mean, our biggest problem with international media is that there is a domination of the Israeli narrative. And one aspect of that narrative is to claim, I mean, in the best case scenario is to show that the two sides are equal. And it's very complicated and very difficult to understand. And so that is designed to make people shy away from the issue. But it's not complicated. It's black and white. There is an oppressor and oppressed. There is a colonial power and people who are under colonialism. There is people who are practicing apartheid and people who are subjected to apartheid. It's simple. But that simplicity, they don't want people to get. And I think we are doing better now because of the use of social media. Of course, social media can be used for good things and can be used for bad things. We all know that. But in my opinion, the communication revolution that is happening in the world today and our ability to use social media is going to help a lot. But that also means, I mean, I do agree with you, that one of the main responsibility of those who are in solidarity with us, with Palestinians, is to bring the right narrative to the people, and especially to the younger generation, because that would make a difference. At the end of the day, I think there are two messages here that have to be transferred to people. Palestinian cause is a just cause. The Palestinian cause is a cause of freedom. But there is another very important message that I should have said maybe in my presentation, which is that we, the Palestinians, will never, ever accept a life of subjugation. We will never accept to be slaves of this system of occupation and apartheid. And that message has to get through, because it's not enough to know that people are suffering. I think it is, I don't totally agree with what you said. It is very important that people know that we are strong and determined and we will struggle for our rights. Thank you.
Je vois une question ici aussi de public, mais j'aimerais aussi adresser une question à Madame Loncón. Et c'est une question aussi que j'aimerais adresser à vous deux. Comme vous le savez, je viens du Brésil. Et au Brésil, nous avons une femme noire, une sociologue, qui, Angela Davis, un jour, en venant au Brésil, a dit, mais je me suis beaucoup inspirée des écrits et des expériences de Lélia Gonzalez, qui c'est une féministe, une théoricienne brésilienne, qui disait que n'importe quel type de mouvance que nous voulons dans la société, elle doit venir, en parlant du contexte brésilien, elle parlait de la femme noire. Pourquoi? Parce qu'elle a les plus petits revenus, parce que c'est la personne qui est dans la pyramide capitaliste sociale au Brésil, et c'est une situation qui est semblable en Amérique latine, ce sont les femmes noires, les femmes autochtones qui sont dans les seuils de cette pyramide sociale-là. Donc, si on arrive à changer leur monde, de permettre que ces personnes-là puissent se politiser, s'engager, elles vont nécessairement nous amener des visions qui sont purement et essentiellement révolutionnaires parce qu'elles sont en train de vivre les conditions les plus précaires de la société. Donc, permettre qu'elles ont les conditions de stand-up, de s'élever et de parler des injustices, c'est de permettre effectivement un changement réel, grassrooted. Donc, je sais que dans les milieux syndicaux, ainsi que la lutte territoriale en Palestine et bien évidemment la lutte mapuche comme d'autres luttes autochtones des Premières Nations au Brésil vient de cette croyance, non seulement de cette indication que la gauche a besoin quand même de ne pas abandonner des personnes qui sont directement en contact et qui vivent les conditions les plus précaires pour pouvoir faire des réels changements quand le moment vient, et y compris les institutions. Nous avons effectivement des possibilités, qui soient des possibilités électorales, qui soient des possibilités institutionnelles, de promouvoir un changement, d'améliorer les conditions. Sauf qu'il y a des limites. La lutte mapuche nous indique ça. Les ministères au Brésil, avec l'élection de Lula en 2002, a très bien indiqué ça aussi, qu'une fois qu'une mouvance de gauche prend les pouvoirs dans l'État, mais il y a un certain affaiblissement de ces forces révolutionnaires-là. Ma question pour vous, c'est, sachant de ces contraintes, de ces limites-là, comment on peut continuer à être mobilisé, mais agir d'une façon dans laquelle on peut utiliser les institutions, mais en même temps ne pas perdre cette mouvance purement politique qui vient des rues, qui vient de l'espace de travail, qui vient des usines. I don't know if I need to ask the same thing, and I need to do this in English, I imagine, for Ms. Loncón, that I think that is hearing us. So Ms. Loncón, what I would like to hear you, and I would invite you to answer first, is how does the struggle from Mapuche to try to have recognition from the state, the right to stay in their territory, how we can at the same time be in the institutions and don't lost the powerful of the streets, the power of the people that are struggling in the forest, that are struggling as the guardians from the forests and from the rivers.
Yes, thank you for the questions.
Your microphone.
I have maybe, do you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. But there is a sound, double sound. Now it's okay, thank you. So the Mapuche people are all the indigenous people. We are the 10% of the Chilean population. So we need the solidarity between us and with the solidarity from the social movement, from women movement, from all of the Chilean people to resolve what is happening in violation of human rights and collective rights here. But and that solidarity, sometimes we have it, but now we are analyzing that it's not efficient because white people, Chilean non-indigenous people, including our indigenous brothers and sisters, we are colonized by the progress idea. We are colonized with the neoliberal ideology. So we need new ontology inside of our struggle. We need to support a new way of thinking and also include the indigenous way of thinking, because today we are able to be in collaboration with all of the movement here in Chile and around the world because of our philosophy to defend the right of the nature, to defend the community, because the philosophy, neoliberal philosophy, is very, it's just inside the person, individual person, but separate the person from the society, from the community. So this is why we are looking for the supporting, political supporting, ideology, philosophical supporting. And for us, it's very important the theory that discuss the progress theory. For instance, I was reading the Silvia Federici, for instance. She's she criticized the ideology, the political theory, the Marxist theory, because the Marxism they didn't care about women, and women was sacrificed because of the progress from really in the 16th century, 60th century, and people from the Marxist way of thinking, they didn't say nothing about it, and also they didn't say nothing about the genocide of indigenous people. So we are very we have our critical point of that philosophy that don't care about the rights of our people, of indigenous. They don't question the genocide, because the genocide is still in our society, and the progress support the genocide, the progress need the genocide. So we need to avoid that problem that is still inside the left party, is in the progressive parties, and we need a new discussion about what is the role of the left in this society.
Mr. Smalls, maybe do you want to try to answer the question, or maybe let Mr. Barghouti?
Repeat the question, because you repeat the question?
Yeah, I can repeat, but I think that I'm gonna let him start to answer, and then I'm gonna.
Okay. Well, the question you raised is of course is a difficult one. How do you maintain? I would say, how do you maintain the revolutionary nature of what you are trying to do while having to engage in institutions and structures? And that is a challenge we face all the time. We've been facing this for the last 40 years. I mean, because from one side, to be efficient, you have to structure. And on the other hand, if you structure too much, you could lose the ability to maintain the impulse of what you are doing. And I don't have a magical answer to this, but I think there are two very important points here that help, in my opinion, in overcoming this difficulty. The first one is that it is so important to maintain grassroots work. It is so important because some leaders tend to forget that. They engage and maybe they become members of parliament, or they become ministers even, or they become prime ministers, and they forget the fact that actually it is so important to maintain that relationship with the grassroots. And I mean by that, not just showing up and taking photos with people, that's silly. What I mean is really listening to people and listening to their to what they have to say about what is done, about policies. But the second very important point is to maintain the democratization of the institution, the internal democracy. If that is lost, then of course you lose the very ability to have new input coming in, and the ability of people to engage and give suggestions. That I think these two issues, maintaining grassroots presence as well as democratic internal structure, is very important. Thank you.
And to piggyback off of that, you know, people ask us all the time, like, why we chose to go independent instead of join an established union, something that's been around for over 100 years, that have money, that have resources, that have power. Well, let me tell you this. I always respond with, well, they had 28 years to organize against Amazon, right? And the reason why we chose our independent way of organizing our union and keeping it worker-led, putting workers in the driver's seat, because as you mentioned, representation is everything. And as I mentioned before, majority of not just essential workers at Amazon, but just in the industry, of course, they're Black and brown and indigenous. And of course, women always are the ones that are the most marginalized, that are most scrutinized, they're the most injured, they're the most, pretty much, they're the most voiceless because of the way society and the way our systems are built. We were never built to be equal. And that's a system that we're up against, and not only trying to change from within, but we're trying to abolish it. You know, when we're talking about systemic racism, you know, we are 400 years plus behind the 8 ball, right? They had a head start on us for generations. So now we're at a point in time in society, just like after the Great Depression in the 1930s, you saw an uprising of labor. But now fast forward to 2020, the pandemic, same thing. Labor is uprising again. Now we have a pivotal moment in history where us as a society, we have to fight to change this to become the society that we want to live in. And representation, women of color, indigenous people, they have to lead the way. The younger generation have to lead the way. My union in particular is women-led. My executive board is majority women. My staff is majority women. My lead organizers are majority women. I have a women's committee, just had celebrated Mother's Day. The first vote for our AOU independent union was a Black woman, and she is now my secretary of treasurer. So I have a vice president who is a woman of color. And I think it's always important. I was raised by a single Black mother. I'm my mom's oldest child. I had to grow up being the man of the household at a young age, watching my single mother work 2 jobs and go to college to support me and my younger brother. So I understand through and through the power of women and women of color, particularly. And I know that we have to put them in the forefront of all of our struggles because they always lead the way, they always find a way out, and they always fight harder because they didn't get the opportunities in the beginning. So, You know, women empowerment, I'm all for it. And once again, as a labor leader, it is our duty to take these stances and be out there for different type of struggles, women's rights, gun rights, environmental, the list goes on. And I will continue to do that. You know, that's just how I see how organizing now has adapted. And one last thing, you know, I like to call people out, and let's be real. There's a lot of dinosaurs in this movement. And what I mean by dinosaurs, you got people that's been in power for 60, 70 years. We know who they are, that pass down their torch to their grandkids or their sons. And that same system is in place from the top down and not the bottom up. And there's nothing wrong with holding your own union accountable. And I'm talking about established unions as well, because the representation, especially for people of color, is still not there. And we know what we're talking about. Every time I come to Canada, I hear about the same thing over and over again. It's the same in America. And I've witnessed that from traveling. That representation is not there yet. Diversity is not there, even within our unions, even within our politicians. And if we're going to support these politicians, especially with our union dues, we got to hold them accountable when they get in office. You know, so understanding that representation is always going to be important, and especially women. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the great talk, and it's really very inspiring. Being a Palestinian, going to be Canadian soon, I faced something very interesting, and I wanted to share with you. When I registered in the University of Toronto in 2012 and 2018, 2 times, I didn't find my nationality on the list. So I went to the academic office and I told her, I cannot choose another citizenship. I am Palestinian. I carry Palestinian passport. How could I choose Israel or Jordan? These are the 2, but never Israel because I'm not Israeli. And Jordan, okay, I carry a document to travel via Jordan, so I chose Jordan. So this is in Canada, in Toronto, and I'm still couldn't find my name in the list. When I came to Montreal in 2019, I was so happy that I found Palestine on the list of McGill University and also on the University of Montreal. I thank Quebec for that. And this is something to share with you. I felt like it's important, as maybe none of you would know that.
Nous avons une autre question.
Hi. Thank you so much, Chris and Dr. Mustafa and Ms. Elisa for your talks. I'm glad that, Chris, you're here and you're talking about the power of labor and the workers. And I wanted to ask Dr. Mustafa a question. First, I'm glad that you brought up youth, because right now there's a youth-led armed struggle in Palestine against the Zionist settler colonial occupation, and the youth are leading the struggle and resistance against the occupation, whether it's in the West Bank or even in the 1948 occupied territories. But I wanted to also ask about the workers. Last year and this year, Palestinian teachers in the occupied West Bank held the longest, so far, the longest strike yet against the Palestinian Authority, because they weren't paying them the wages and they were working in really horrible working conditions. This is while neoliberalism is being, injected into the occupied West Bank with things like building towns like Rawabi by Palestinian millionaires, as Palestinian workers are being neglected by the Palestinian Authority, which is supposed to be the quote-unquote authority over Palestinians working in the West Bank. And so I wanted to ask you to elaborate on the struggle of Palestinian workers. Right now it's May, and incidentally in 1936, in May, Palestinian workers started the Great Revolt of 1936 to 1939 against the British colonizers and Zionist settlements at the time. And so I wonder if you can elaborate about that.
Shall I answer? Thank you so much. I mean, you bring us straightforward into internal Palestinian issues. And as you know, we are an opposition movement to the Palestinian Authority, besides the fact that we are struggling for our freedom, because we do not agree with many policies of the Palestinian Authority. And as you know, it's not really a real authority. It's an authority under occupation. And our movement was founded with people like Haidar Abdel-Shafi and Edward Said. What got us together was our objection to Oslo Agreement, which in our opinion was unjust, unfair, and wrong, and did not really reflect the interest of the Palestinian people. But what you have just mentioned about the teacher strike, as well as the issue of, I mean, it wasn't only teacher strike. We had teacher strike, we had lawyer strike, we had doctor strike, nurses strike. Every sector actually went into strike because of the wrong policies of the Palestinian Authority. But what is very interesting in my perspective here, which really links very much with what Chris said, is that the teachers in the case, when they went into strike, they were demanding two things. First of all, improvement of their salaries, which is fair. But more important, they were demanding a democratic union of themselves. I mean, that they will have the right to elect freely and democratically their representatives. Because the existing so-called union is practically appointed by the authority. And that's one area I really would like to issue an invitation to you, Chris, to come to Palestine, because I would like you to come and meet with our trade unionists. And one major problem we have, I mean, I don't shy away from talking about our problems, is that the main trade union in Palestine is a bureaucratic institution. It has never really been subjected to free democratic elections by workers themselves. And that's why this is where, as I think our colleague from Chile said, this is where inside the structure, you have colonialism goes inside the structures, even of those people who are struggling against colonialism. So I do believe that the teacher strike is not over. I mean, they suspended it for the sake of students now so that they can finish their exams and so on. But the big battle that is going to be in front of us now is how to impose a truly democratically elected union of the teachers. I was with them in their demonstrations, we were with them, and we will be struggling with them to achieve that goal. And I hope that from that perspective, not only teachers would be able to construct and establish a union that they elect themselves, but also that this would be applied to other structures.
Nous sommes quand même finis avec les temps, sauf que on pourrait faire une dernière tournée. La seule chose, c'est qu'il faut faire vraiment les questions au plus vite, vraiment courtes, pour qu'on puisse avoir la réponse aussi sans...
Oui, c'est assez court. Merci beaucoup pour la présentation. Ma question, c'est pour monsieur Barghouti. Je vais essayer de demander en anglais. We talked about the ignorance for the Palestinian cause, but in the 70s, in the year 70s, the Palestinian cause was very common in the revolutionary movements, all of the revolutionary movements on the world. The actions of solidarity, even from Japan, Germany, France, you see here in the North America, the Black Panther movement, everybody had somebody sacrificed their life for solidarity with the Palestinian cause. Do you see a kind of decrease in this solidarity? If it is the case, what's the reason?
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, we're gonna have the last answer, and then unfortunately we need to finish. Unfortunately.
Well, I think there is a declining solidarity for sure, and less knowledge about the Palestinian issue in many countries. There are several reasons for that. First of all, the situation of the world international solidarity is not as good as it was in the 70s. And I think that is one reflection of the crisis of the left that we are discussing. That that level of international solidarity, I remember very well when I was a student in the university, when the coup happened in Chile, it was our issue. It was our problem. I mean, we were out there trying to show solidarity with the people there. When there was a strike, the international worldwide solidarity was in a better shape than it is today. And that is a major issue for the whole left movement worldwide. But also there is another reason, and which is the mistake of some Palestinians. And I mean, basically the PLO leadership. The PLO leadership made a huge mistake by signing Oslo Agreement, and they made a bigger mistake by making the PLO structure, which is a national liberation movement, becoming part of the Palestinian Authority rather than being the leader of the Palestinian Authority. And that is where internally we are here struggling very much to reform and restructure PLO in a democratic way, demanding democratic free elections internally so that we can have a better leadership that is representing the people. But that's one side of the issue. The other side of the issue is really the power of the Israeli lobby. And I met here with a friend from Greece who told me how Greece, who used to be a very big supporter of the Palestinian cause, has transformed now because of the power of the Israeli lobby there that is trying to change the policy of Greece. And it's not just Greece, it's also India. And Israel has used the need of some countries for military equipment and for intelligence software, etc., to transform the opinion and positions. Of course, the people, I am sure the people of Greece and the people in India are still supportive of the Palestinian cause, but the governments are not. And so there are changes that are happening because also of the power. And I think the Israelis were smart in using the model they managed to build in the United States in particular, and then replicating it in so many different places. They dare even to go to a place like South Africa and try to change the policy of South Africa on the Palestinian issue. But that leads me, and this is my final word, I don't want to take much of your time, to the major question here in Canada and probably in other countries. How do you force politicians, and especially in the government, to change their stand about Palestine? I believe the only way to do that, the only way, is to make them understand that their position regarding Palestine would affect the number of votes they will get in elections. And that is the only way you can really force them, given the circumstances today. And that's why I call on the solidarity movement here to do everything they can, not only to do solidarity at grassroots level, but also to pressure the politicians for the positions they are taking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I am very grateful for me and for all of us, and I would like to address me to Ms. Loncón. Ms. Loncón, the First Nation, the indigenous people from Mato Grosso, the place that I'm coming from, Brazil, they have a way of saying thank you that it's almost, in the translation, is almost saying my ancestors, those that came. Again, sorry. Je suis vraiment désolée, madame. Donc, ceux et celles qui sont venus avant moi, those that came before me, make all the salutations to you and through you to your ancestors, because the people that came before you and the people that came before me and their struggle, they allowed us to be here struggling still, even with all that we have been passing through. So, je voulais vraiment vous remercier pour partager cette soirée avec nous et partager vos connaissances, vos expériences et power to the people.
Para olhar para lá, a sua voz
Sumia. Não. Eu não consigo.